I'm not paying $80. Pat just said, we're going to play the president's words, right? No, I'm not paying $80 for you, so you can...
I'm gonna. It's not $80, it's $40, first of all.
So you're paying it? You paying the $40?
Yeah, I guess I'll pay the $40.
Wow.
Well, we still have to address last week as well. Get that guy board straightened out.
What happened?
What happened last week?
Well, I know about my fine. I'm ready to pay my fine.
Your fine's...
Yeah, I know. How many? I did like 3.
That's correct.
Yeah.
3? Wow, $60. That hurts.
And then I had one.
You had one.
Yeah. You had one.
Yeah. And I had
then you had
0.
a couple of audios that were given special dispensation.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
we
so
addressed
get
that.
off
We
my
got
back.
that.
I mean, what do you want from me?
We have bigger fish to fry than this.
Yeah.
Is this all you got?
The show's tyrant said,
Yeah.
and so I'm just going with what he said.
Hey, I'm not changing the rules. You guys, when I hired you, I was like, I'm a tyrant. Just want you to know I'm a tyrant. This is not a democracy. This is certainly not even a republic. I'm a tyrant. My way or the highway.
It's a lot like my wife when we were dating, and she was sweet as pie, and then somewhere along the line she said, I'm really not like this. And I'm like, oh, of course you are. What are you talking about? No, when you really...
Do you hear it? You hear it, America? You hear it? It's a cry for help. It's a cry for help.
Did she really give you legitimate warning like that?
Yes, she did.
I am going to
she
change
did.
into another person
She said,
very soon.
I'm kind of a nag, and I'll be after you from time to time. And I just couldn't imagine it.
Just in passing.
There's just no way.
Just from time to time. From 1983
On.
to today.
From time to time, odd seconds and even seconds.
Yes.
That time to that time.
Every time you're awake, and sometimes when you're asleep.
Yeah.
Why aren't you awake? But anyway, here's our president on. He's
Tyranny?
speaking. Yes, on tyranny. He's speaking at The Ohio State University at their commencement, and it sounded a little something like this.
Grown up hearing voices that incessantly warn of government as nothing more than some separate, sinister entity that's at the root of all our problems. Some of these same voices also do their best to gum up the works. They'll warn that tyranny is always lurking just around the corner.
Jeez.
You should reject these voices.
Oh.
Because what they suggest is that our brave and creative and unique experiment in self-rule is somehow just a sham.
Okay, stop for a second.
With which-
Can you imagine? Okay, first of all, this is exactly what a tyrant would say. I mean, I hate to point it out, but that's exactly what a tyrant would say. You should always be on. I mean, a non-tyrant would say you should always be on guard. You should always be in guard.
Which is what our founders said.
Yes, every president has said that.
It has nothing to do with our amazing experiment, which we talk about all the time, and he rejects all the time.
Right.
It has to do with the fact that we're supposed to be on guard for the government getting bigger and becoming tyrannical.
Now, I would just like to point out to all of the lefties, they have abandoned their post, and that's good because they were never really at that post anyway. As I pointed out in the NRA speech on Friday, what they've done is they've took Martin Luther King, they took this great movement of love and made it into free love and free sex. That had nothing to do with freedom and had everything to do with sex, not love. Martin Luther King was about freedom and love, God's love. That's what that whole thing was about. But the media and those who are in the elite, they went and they took it and made it about the naked hippies. And so we have missed the entire real lesson and the power of the force that actually changed things. You know, it's amazing that this president, think about how much they have abandoned their position as civil rights leaders. This president is saying, government tyranny. Excuse me? Excuse me? Aren't you the one that is always talking about how the police act stupidly? What are they part? Are they part of the Cub Scouts? That's the government, my friend. That's the government. Who's always making it out to be that the soldiers are bad? Making that our government is always on the wrong side in Israel and every place else.
How many times did he go to the Middle East and say, and France and Germany and everywhere else around the world, everywhere like such as.
And said we're arrogant.
Said we made all these mistakes. He kept saying that we've done this and we've done that. And we've been We've been the aggressor in so many of these things.
Who are you talking about? See, what he's talking about here is not the government. As long as he is in charge, it's not the government.
Mm-hmm.
But if anybody else is in charge, then the government is arrogant, then the country. But this fits nicely into what he was saying to Mexicans. He was telling Mexicans that it is our drug culture that wants all of these drugs, that has caused all of the death. Anybody who has a gun here in America, it's our gun culture that has caused any of the death. Not Holdren. Or not Holdren, but Holder, Eric Holder, running guns. It had nothing to do with that.
Yeah, he blamed Americans for the drug trade, and then he said we also recognize that most of the guns that cause gun violence come from the United States. First of all, that's not true. That's a flat-out lie. It's most of the registered guns happen to be here, but most of them aren't registered. And they can't track them, and so they don't know where they come from.
Well, we know a lot of them came right directly from the Attorney General's office.
And some of them came directly from the Attorney General's office,
so
which he also
look at how
ignored.
Look at what he has done. Do not listen to the voices who don't warn you about your freedom is valuable, that your freedom is coveted by someone else. This guy is amazing. In all of human history, freedom, real freedom, has been a blip, just a blip in time. It's a mistake of history, really. When you look at it all through history, if you would look at this one little aberration, you would say that's a mistake. That's how rare freedom is. And he says, don't worry about that. Well, may I ask you, Mr. President, wasn't it government tyranny that enslaved the African Americans? It was government tyranny. Because that's why you say you can't listen to the founders. Because they put together a whole system of tyranny. That's what your people say. The whole system is tyrannical. So how can you possibly say don't listen to those voices? Have you not learned what you're trying to even teach? How about the Indians, the Native Americans, who you are out pumping fists with all the time, who you are out trying to say, let me put on the headdress because I look cool in the headdress. Don't I look like, because I'm like you. I'm you. I'm me smoking peace pipe. You parade with the Native Americans, and you are such a fraud. You parade around, and yet you say government is not tyrannical. Is that exactly what you tell people on the Native American Indian reservations, that the government was that wasn't tyranny? What was it, Mr. President? Don't listen to the voices that will tell you the government can become tyrannical.
It seems like the victims of government tyranny seem to be the most receptive to their outreach now. When the government goes to African Americans and says, don't worry, we're going to help you this time, they seem to be so receptive.
So receptive. And he is the same voice. He is exactly the same voice. I mean, he said in Jeremiah Wright's church, it was Jeremiah Wright teaching that the government wasn't tyrannical? Because I've listened to all of his speeches.
That's a great point. It's so tyrannical, they're inventing diseases to kill certain races.
Right. It is the government, to him. You talk about me being a conspiracy theory? They invented AIDS, according to your pastor. They invented AIDS. I'm the conspiracy freak, and they're not tyrannical. Wow, that's a new position for you. We should go back and ask the Japanese Americans. We should go ask the Japanese Americans that lived on the Pacific Rim back in World War II, that were scooped up and put in internment camps. This is such an easy thing to win, America. If we stop talking, if we stop thinking that we are in the position that we have always held. We don't hold that position anymore, gang. And here's the amazing thing. Those so-called, would you please, somebody find the speech from Israel, where I talked about how the civil rights leaders had become a joke. It's a perverted joke. This is exactly it. That's what I was talking about when I was in Israel. And if we don't occupy that space, believe me, they'll just keep occupying it. You can't occupy both spaces. You can't be the man and also stand up against the man. What kind of schizophrenic are you? It's amazing. Stu, would you do me a favor? Would you go through all of Jeremiah Wright's, all of his talks and point out all of the places where the government is tyrannical?
Sure.
Put people on from TheBlaze or whoever you need, find all of the places where the president and those around him. Get Van Jones. Van Jones says that the administration was not only killing people overseas, but he says we're poisoning the drinking water.
Yeah, and then give them the wealth. He talks about
give them the wealth because we stole it. Who's we? The government. The government stole the wealth. If the government didn't steal the wealth, then what use was this government? Because it didn't stop anybody. But we know the truth, as I showed with the gun from Saturday night, Chief Kicking Bear's gun from Wounded Knee. Wounded Knee, one of the most shameful points in American history that has all been but covered up, except for those who used to stand for civil rights. Don't you see, America, the opportunity you have? This is the civil rights movement. It is. And you have found yourself in the leadership position of the civil rights movement because no one else will pick it up.